Hello everybody, I'm John, this is JP Strategic Investments, and today we've got some big news, okay? IPVM got a hold of the full NCS4 operational exercise report from Evolv. Their Evolv Express was evaluated. Remember, this was months ago, almost a year ago actually, I think that the actual evaluation took place, and we finally get the full report here. Remember, when we initially got this report, it took several more months than was expected. And the report we got was essentially it was a heavily redacted version of the report. Didn't really tell us anything, kind of gave us some fluff, gave us a few metrics. And Evolv, of course, went and touted it as, this great report. Their score was good, right? The, 0 to 3 score was good. They said, hey, we did really well. But then we find out that there's a full public report that we didn't actually, a full private report that we didn't actually get that was 52 pages long. And the public report that we got was 25. Essentially, they were hiding half of the report and we didn't have access to it. The only way you could get that report is if you were a prospective customer that had already shown interest, and you submitted a request to see the report, and then you could see the report, right? So with IPVM, great job. I give a ton of credit to these guys, Connor over there. Definitely go and check the full article out. There's a video from the BBC that's linked there. There's, I think, another article from the BBC as well. Definitely go check all of that out and read that on your own. It was really well done, really well put together. Give a lot of credit to those guys again. And so I'm going to kind of go over the report, a little bit of the report, because they gave us access to the full report. If you go and read the article, there's a link in there in the article for the full report. You can go and look at it yourself, kind of compare yourself, what was in the full report versus what was in, kind of just the fluff that we got in the initial public report. And you can do that. But what I'm going to do today basically is a couple things. I'm going to, of course, go over some of the main things that I saw that were in the full report that were not in the private report and kind of talk about that. I'm also going to talk about how this might affect, NCS4. Some people are saying, this whole situation is kind of affecting their credibility maybe as an evaluation agency and things like that. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, I'll talk about, what I think this is going to, or how I think this is going to affect both of these companies and their stocks going forward, because, mainly this channel is geared towards investing and things like that, right? So let's jump right into it. The first thing that I do want to clarify, though, because I think this kind of is the basis for some of the things where I might disagree a little bit with IPVM's analysis here. And that is what the actual operational exercise report is and from NCS4 and how it works. Because I think that's really important, okay? And especially if any of you guys, are new to Patriot One or Evolv and you hadn't seen the operational exercise reports when they came out, you weren't kind of a part of that whole process. Basically, NCS4, pretty well respected organization when it comes to spectator sports safety, any large venue, arena safety, even amusement parks, things like that. Their advisory boards are kind of made up of the who's who of large venue and event security, right? Pretty well respected organization, and they do these operational exercise reports. Essentially, what they do is they offer them to companies. Companies can come to them and they can essentially have NCS4 test their product against their advertised capabilities, okay? And I think that's really important, okay? It's really important to understand here that in these operational exercise reports, right, they are not a test to see how well it meets the standards for, the NHL or the NBA or amusement parks or concerts or whatever, right? they're not using, maybe what might be the FBI standards or any like DOJ, anything like that, right? Now, the company can put forth those regulations as what they say their advertised capabilities are. And then, yes, that would be an accurate test of how well it performs, how well it stands up to those standards, right? And that's exactly what Patriot 1 did, right? So in that case, yeah, you can actually look at that and you can say, okay, the evaluation is kind of a metric of how well they might be able to meet the standards of the NHL, the NBA, sports leagues, other sports leagues, things like that, right? But keep in mind, for the most part, most of these evaluations, or they don't even like to call them evaluations actually if you talk to NCS4, but most of these operational exercises, the vendor, right, the company, in this case Evolv, is telling NCS4, hey, this is what we say our product does. It does this, it does this, it does this, right? And it maybe stands up to this at this percentage or this standard or whatnot, right? And NCS4 says, okay, we'll take all of that information, we'll make that into a rubric, and then we'll bring in a group of security experts. In this case, I think it was 3 experts. They go to an event at any sports arena, whatever, or if it's a different type of technology, maybe it's a different area. But in this case, sports venue, and they actually use these systems at the sports venue. They test them with a variety of different test objects, which I'll go over in a little bit, and they see how it does, right? Now, there's a couple important things though as far as how they do that. Again, really important, they're only testing it to the advertised capabilities of the company, right? It's not, like we're looking at specific standards out there from any sports league or anything like that, okay? That's one point there that's really important. The next point here is that NCS4 uses a grading scale in these operational exercise reports. And I'll kind of actually go to it here. They use a 0 to 3 grading scale. Let me see if I can find it. It should be pretty close here, right here. Okay. They use a 0 to 3 grading scale. 0 means it does not meet the stated requirement. 1 partially meets the stated requirement. 2 meets the stated requirement with recommendations. And 3 meets the stated requirement. Now, the issue with this, in my opinion, is it doesn't actually give a good representation, one, of how well the technology actually performs, but also even how well they kind of meet their advertised capabilities. And I'll go over why in a little bit. But I just want to let you guys know, again, as far as explaining how these exercises work, they do use that grading scale. Now, what they also do as well within the report, if you get into the scoring section, they do give certain percentages and things like that. Now, obviously, in the public report that we got from Evolv, they don't. We don't have any percentages or anything like that, right? In the private report, though, this little thing that says confidential on every single page, in the private report, we do actually get some percentages as far as how they perform. So that gives us a little extra context there. You can see they give us, Evolv Express will detect at a rate of 98% or greater, and then they say, they did 100%. And so they'll give those percentages as well. And in my opinion, those percentages, what the requirement is, and how well they stood up to that requirement, those are what you really want to look at in this report if you're really trying to evaluate the specific capabilities of the technology. And also, as an investor, if you're trying to see maybe how one product compares to another, this is what you really want to look at. Because, again, because these reports are not standardized, right? The standards to which one report might be testing a product could be completely different than the standards to which another report is testing another product in the same field, right? Because again, the companies are giving their advertised capabilities to NCS4, and NCS4 is testing them against those capabilities. So if Patriot 1 goes and says, we will detect knives to 95% accuracy, and they go and they do 94% accuracy, right? Well, they're going to get marked down a little bit on that. But if Evolv goes and they say, hey, we'll detect knives to 70% accuracy, and they do 75%, right? Then Evolv will get full credit, right? Even though Patriot 1 actually detected knives at a higher rate. So if you guys, I just want to make sure you guys understand the way that these reports work and why I think that really going through and looking at what the requirement was and how well they stood up to that requirement is, in my opinion, really what you want to look at as far as evaluating these technologies. So that's kind of the main thing that I want to talk about here. We'll get into some of the other issues with why I think the scoring is a little skewed and things like that. But IPVM does a really good job of laying out some of the things in this article. Definitely check this article out if you guys haven't already. I'm not going to play the video. I'm not going to go through this full article. I want you guys, I want IPVM to get the credit here for this. So definitely go check that out. Read the full report yourself, everything like that. But I'm going to kind of go over maybe some of the areas, main points where I differ from maybe IPVM's analysis here, and some of the portions where I agree with them, okay? So the main thing where I might differ from IPVM's analysis, one of the issues that IPVM brings up with this report is that they have evidence, and they also have a variety of correspondence between Evolv and NCS4. They were able to get a lot of information. So definitely, again, read that article. They have responses from Evolv. They have communications with NCS4, between them and NCS4, and Evolv and NCS4. It's really interesting. But one of the main points that they talk about here is that Evolv made edits to a variety of the areas within the report that went into the eventual public version of the report, right? Now, personally, I don't necessarily have an issue with most of that. The reason why is, again, mostly because of how these reports are put together. We have to keep in mind, and they state this, NCS4 make sure they state this like multiple times, pretty much at the end of every section. This overview was provided by Evolv Technology. While all statements were not evaluated during the exercise, several statements serve as the basis for exercise criteria. So what they're saying there is all of this fluff, all of this commentary and overview in kind of the first initial pages of the report, whenever they're talking about, this segment here, right? Like, by offering touchless weapons detection and efficient threat resolution, Evolv Express aims to elevate fan experience, and etc., right? All of that is provided. Some of it is even pulled, I think, often verbatim from the company's website or things like that. They make sure that this commentary here, this overview, is just provided by Evolv. It's their opinion. It's their claims, right? And they're saying some of the claims there that they make were evaluated, but some of them, they're just telling you what Evolv says about their product, right? They're just saying, this is what they say. We evaluated some of the statements. We didn't evaluate some of the other statements, right? So making edits to that, I don't really have an issue with. They do talk about later on making edits to some of the commentary that the evaluators provided. That is a little sketchy to me. Now, NCS4 did mention that the evaluator feedback, if the evaluators and the company, in this case Evolv, wants to talk about what that feedback meant and why they think it might be edited, I can see where, maybe a company might get some feedback and go, hey, well, it's actually not the case because of this, this, and this, and maybe the evaluator's like, okay, I guess I agree, and they want to change that. I'm kind of torn on that. I don't really like that. But for the most part, with all of these other edits, I don't have too much of an issue with that. Now, what I do agree with, and what IPVM's main issue with this report and with hiding this report is advertised capabilities. A lot of what they say about their product doesn't seem to really flow with what this report is saying, right? One of the main examples that they give, right, is Evolv. If you look at their website, right, if you Google Evolv, the first thing that pops up, the first kind of line on their website there is Evolv weapons-free zones. And if you go to their website and you see right away, they're basically saying, hey, the areas where you're using our technology are weapons-free zones. In fact, they go ahead and they say that we have, 350 million people screened, etc. And they say they have 1,000 weapons-free zones. That to me, I mean, if you go into the report, right? And again, this is one of the main things that IPVM points out. Sorry for my scrolling here. Let's see. Right here, if you go into the report, one of the things you'll notice is that for knives, right here, Evolv Express is capable of detecting knives made of ferrous metals exceeding 5 inches. First of all, that's a large knife as it is. That means you can, essentially get basically any other knife in. Obviously not a weapons-free zone. Also, based on this test of 5 inches in length or higher, multiple knives of different types and kinds were processed through the randomized test locations. Some knives alerted at 100%, while others were not detected. The overall detection rate was 58%. You can't really say it's a weapons-free zone if 58% or only 58% of the knives are stopped, right? And you go into some of the guns here. They did well on most of the guns. I'll give that to Evolv, right? They did pretty well on the guns. The area where they had an issue was the micro compact pistols, which, by the way, IPVM makes a point in their article, a very good point, that those types of pistols actually make up a fairly large portion of the market when it comes to 9mm pistols specifically. But anyway, they were supposed to do 98% or greater. They did 92%. Now, okay, you could say 92% is pretty good, right? But all it takes is one gun to get through for something bad to happen. And on top of that, 92% is not a weapons-free zone, in my opinion. Now, maybe they're defining weapons-free zone differently than no weapons. I don't know how you could do that, but that could be the case. So that is kind of an issue there. And as far as, this report, I think the main areas where we're seeing things that were not in the initial report, first, we're not getting, or we do get in this private report, all of the percentages and things like that. So again, I think, all of you guys, especially if you're invested in either one of these companies, definitely you should be taking a look at all of that, all of these percentages, all of the feedback too. One of the things that I found really funny in here, and IPVM pointed this out, on one of the evaluator feedback, right, this one for knives where they only detected 58%, it says the technology, and this is the evaluator feedback, it says the technology can detect some knives of various sizes, shapes, and thicknesses at various test locations, but the system was incapable of detecting every knife on the sensitivity level observed, which, by the way, in the report later it shows the sensitivity level was relatively high, from my understanding. But the last note here is the great part. Recommend full transparency to potential customer base on data collected. Now, you could say Evolv did that because they made the report available at request to a customer who had directly contacted them and expressed interest. But for anybody just browsing, any companies or arenas out there, just kind of going through and browsing, checking out this stuff, what they got first, and probably unfortunately what they might have just stopped at, is that public report that was heavily redacted that, in my opinion, didn't really give a full picture of what the report actually shows here. And finally, kind of my last criticism here, and I think this is one of the major flaws in this scoring system that is used here, is there are a whole bunch of categories on here that are either not as important as the detection rates, false alert rates, whatnot, or are just outright irrelevant. Okay, some of these things like visual indicators, audible indicators. If we go down past here, we see alert notifications, incident review, all of this analysis stuff. Like, sure, that's kind of important, and obviously you advertise that your product has that, but I don't think that it should get an Evolv, or I'm sorry, I keep mixing up the two. IPVM made a great point that these scores on these types of categories should be weighted less, and I agree with them in that analysis, than the scores as far as the detection rates and things like that. Because when you give these categories the same weight, right, the same 0 to 3 scale, and then you add all of that up, average it out, I could go in here and put, and actually the funny thing is Evolv there's one in here that is just pretty ridiculous. It's like a light shows up to show that the system is connected or something like that. If I wanted to make a product, right, that I could say that I have this product, you set it outside, and yeah, it'll detect all the weapons coming in, and it detects like none of the weapons, and I have NCS4 evaluate it, right? But I make a bunch of categories that say it has a red light on the top, it has a blue light on the top, it has a sticker on the side, it's taller than 4 inches, all of these useless categories, and I get full credit in all of them. I could make like 20 of those categories, make the other 3 categories that it detects guns, knives, and bombs. It could get 0 in all of those categories and still get like an 80% or 90% as a score based on this 0 to 3 scale where all of the categories are weighted the same. So again, that's why I think this 0 to 3 rating, it may be useful in some areas, but for the most part, for really evaluating the technology, especially doing comparisons, it really isn't that useful. And that's why I think everybody should go take a look at this report, go through the article from IPVM. Again, these guys did really great work here. Definitely go support them. Check out that article. Check out the video, maybe even the BBC article, and just give them some credit. These guys did a good job. So that's kind of my analysis on this. Definitely let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of this report, of the article, everything like that. And I do have a video actually probably coming later today, maybe tomorrow, something big with Patriot Ones. So if you guys stuck around for the end of the video here, definitely keep an eye out for that video. I think it's going to be pretty big. I think it's something with Patriot One that I am pretty excited about. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Other than that, I will see you guys next time. Have a great day.